You know who's a traitor? The federal government of Canada, and at least 20 years ago, is the traitor that turned their back on everything that we believed in. When people ask the question around a Canadian patriotism, and of course, this is a very good question. Because you'll hear, I mean, it goes from, are you going to turn your back on your own country? Are you a traitor even? You'll see that. And when you're having conversation with friends and family over the holidays, these questions may come up. And of course, we're kind of encouraging people to have those discussions. Sometimes it's not always great to do that around the Christmas dinner table. But there's a time and a place. We have to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Strategic? We have to, there's a time and a place for conversations. And when you have them, you might hear that. Maybe the challenge is, are you not turning your back on Canada? Aren't you patriotic for your own country? And I have actually found this has been one of the easiest questions to reply to. Listen, I'm an old stock Canadian. Now, when I grew up, there would be no such word as that. You didn't go to a university, and they didn't refer to native-born white Canadian people as with a derogatory, these old stock Canadians. But here we are, and I can tell you this, I do remember being as young as maybe 7 or 8 years old. Maybe I had just kind of come to my own realization of the outside world around that age. And I remember being on I think it was a train. Yes, I'm sure it was a train going into Edmonton. And there was these, I think it might have been the Olympics. Maybe it was the Montreal, somebody can timeline me, but, and seeing the Canadian flag and thinking that was awesome. And I was like, I'm part of something. But this really started to change even in the 1980s. And so what I tell friends is, let's fast forward a little bit here, because I can remember when we used to wear like a maple leaf. It could be a pin or a t-shirt or a hat, traveling abroad, backpacking around the, wherever you went, somewhere abroad, or if you went down to the States, you might even have a Canada shirt or something, or roots or some sort of thing. And you were kind of like proud of that. Like, you're like, yeah, I am, wasn't that a campaign? I am Canadian. We were proud of this, but here's what I tell people is that you wouldn't find anyone, you're not going to find anyone more patriotic than I was, and still am. But wait a minute, I'm trying to encourage people to vote to separate from Canada, cease to be part of Canadian Federation, and that's because despite the name Canada, the Canada that we knew has been sold out. It's gone. Okay, so this sometimes becoming a case of not leaving Canada. Canada left me. It's sold out, and I don't know exactly what we need to call this. Really, by the 2000s, Canada was already well on the way to becoming a United Nations. It is the Canadian WEF Federation. It's sold out to become some kind of, global franchise region. It's currently, the franchise manager is Mark Carney. It doesn't make a difference. He's a great representative because he is just himself a climate change globalist, World Health Organization. He's just one of them, one of their management team. I landed in Toronto. you'd think Toronto is, we're going to see a lot of Canada's history and, sort of where Canada, had a lot of its start. And you don't see any such thing. In fact, it's almost anti-Canadian. And you would realize there's just there's hundreds of Afghans. There's Africans wandering around outside. The Chinese have bought everything. There's no unity. There's no anything. This is a global refugee franchise region. And it's more than that, of course. It's the dissolution of Canadian values. Here we talk about the Christmas season. Christmas is not at all what it used to be in Canada. It used to be very much a week-long. People didn't go to work for a week to maybe 7, even 10 days. But this was a long holiday. You would go outside on a Christmas morning, maybe for whatever reason, you'd go out in your front, you weren't going somewhere, and it would be complete silence across the board. So it's not anymore. Nothing is the way it was. There's only I would say there's only 1 or 2 places left in Canadian Federation, which again is not a Canada. Okay, it's not the Canada that you knew. It's not the Canada that I feel patriotic for. It's in many ways, it is anti-Canada. It's an anti-Canadian culture, an anti-Canadian government. And maybe the only 2 places I can think of is, now hear me out, where there's a viable remnant, a remnant of Canada as we knew it, and that is in the prairies, and that is Alberta and Saskatchewan. That is the last 2 places that the Canada that you knew and loved, the Canada you think you're feeling that patriotism for, is still. There's still a remnant of it left. If it was to be preserved, maybe it can be revived. The values, the freedoms, even the spirit of Canada, which was one of a pioneering spirit, a fearless spirit. It was one of innovation and invention. And personal responsibility as well. And certainly founded in very Christian values. And maybe you could say conservative. I don't know if I always loved these terms, conservative, right-wing, traditional. I think traditional is what we're looking for. And that's why, guys. So, and if I sound a little bit both sad and passionate and hopeful, it's because it's all those things. And when someone comes to you and talks to you about that and says, are you, traitor, people are going to try that. You know who's a traitor? The federal government of Canada, and at least 20 years ago, is the traitor that turned their back on everything that we believed in, and in fact has done everything possible to replace Canada with, and they have succeeded. And that maybe brings me to something else too, which is there's a lot of people who will say, now this is, by the way, bless them, because this is a perfectly good question. And this will come about, you've heard this maybe even in church splits, and you've heard this in organizational splits. If you leave your organization, then there's nobody left who's left to fight for it. This is where I have to tell people, I'm sorry, it's over, okay? We lost, and it's not going to be. I want everyone to think, this is what I would tell people. You had 10 years where the Liberal Party with Justin Trudeau were re-elected, what, 3 times? I lost track. 2 times? Even the second time, every one of you should have realized, oh, this is over. But okay, let's see if we can. There should have been nothing but it just should have been a blowout. It just should have been a wipeout of the Liberals. Obviously, that's what would have happened. If you had any hope of Canada somehow climbing back and Pierre, you got to do something with the name. You're not going to be, the Conservatives are going to, what if the Conservatives win and then maybe, no, they voted in the Liberals again. And they voted in somebody who's more of a WEF, World Economic Forum, United Nations manager than even Trudeau was. Okay, so it's over. That's all you need to see, is that this is not going to be, Canada's not going to be revived. We're not making a reform party that's going to try to take Canada back to where it's over. We lost. It's done. The only way you're going to find that Canada that you love, I don't want to turn my back on my own country. I'm a patriot. Well, then the only way you're ever going to have that in your life is when Alberta separates from the rest of the... Listen, can I bring up a zombie movie? If you're in a zombie movie, you're holding hands with 12 others and you're not zombies, but oh my God, your leader got infected with the zombie virus. And the next person that was touching him was infected, and the next one. And then all of a sudden, you realize that 7, 8 of you, there's only 2 of you left that aren't zombies. Well, you don't stay, do you? The only way you're going to preserve your life and your family is you got to let go of that zombie infection that's closing in, and it is across the country. It's closing in on, it's taking over everybody and everything. I would not have believed Manitoba would have become a woke, leftist, native land acknowledgement loving Toronto Wokian playground. Well, it is. So I would say to people, that's a long way to tell you, long story short, if you do get that question, and if that is brought up, and somebody does want to confront you about that, I would say, first of all, don't shake your camera. And second of all, I would tell you, do you know that this has been almost one of the easiest questions I've had to deal with. When people bring that up, and you would think that that might be one of the most contentious and difficult questions and criticisms of the Alberta independence movement, the fact is that almost everybody I talk to will either agree strongly or they will accept that. And you won't hear are you a traitor? Isn't it treasonous to try to separate from your own country? Actually, no, they won't. They will, most often people will just nod and go, no, that's right. Yeah, no, Canada isn't at all. But they'll think, sometimes not a long time, they'll go, no, yeah, you're right. Canada isn't at all what the country it's not the country that you think you're patriotic for. Canada as we knew it, is gone. And, for just some weakening places around Canada still hold that type of hope. But, yeah, I found almost everybody deals with this very well when you tell them, simply put, no, I love Canada. That's exactly what's happening here, is that I'm proud of Canada. I want the Canada that I grew up with, but better, and to improve the Canada that I grew up with. And it doesn't exist anymore. it maybe exists in, it's maybe parts of it left in Alberta. And the only way you're going to save it from being infected and diluted is to separate, is to firewall it off, is to preserve it, is to try to preserve it, and then try to see if we can revive and grow it back. That Canada that we are proud of. But it's the only way you're going to preserve the remnant of Canada that's left. And don't be afraid to have those discussions with people about Alberta independence, but again, with friends and family, know your time and know the place and know the relative and maybe how much rum and eggnog that they've had. So maybe another consideration. Okay, God bless you guys. Awesome.